The vast expanse of space stretched out before the gleaming silver ship. Captain Sarah Chen stood on the bridge, her dark eyes fixed on the holographic display. Countless stars twinkled, but her gaze was locked on a single point of light. That tiny dot represented humanity's future and their first step into a larger universe. "Status report," Sarah called out, her voice steady despite the excitement bubbling in her chest. Lieutenant Rodriguez, a young man with a mop of curly hair, responded quickly. "All systems are green, Captain. The fleet is ready for the jump." Sarah nodded, a small smile tugging at the corners of her lips. The fleet was a generous term. Earth had managed to build only 5 ships capable of interstellar travel. To the rest of the galaxy, it must look like a joke. But appearances could be deceiving. Far across the galaxy, on a bustling space station named Nexus Prime, an important meeting was taking place. The Grand Council of the Confederation had gathered. Alien beings of all shapes and sizes filled the massive chamber. Some floated in anti-gravity fields, others stood on multiple legs, and a few were nothing more than swirling clouds of gas. At the center of it all stood High Counselor Zixthar, a tall, slender being with iridescent skin. His large, multifaceted eyes scanned the room as he spoke. "Fellow members of the Confederation," his voice boomed, translated instantly into hundreds of languages. "We face a new situation." A low murmur swept through the chamber. Zixthar raised a hand for silence. "A new species has achieved interstellar travel. They call themselves humans." Laughter erupted from various corners of the room. A bulbous creature near the front gurgled out a question. "And how many ships do these humans have in their fleet?" Zixthar's expression remained neutral. "Our scouts report 5 vessels." The laughter grew louder. Even Zixthar's aide, a small reptilian being, had to stifle a chuckle. "5 ships," a voice called out. "That's not a fleet, it's a joke." Zixthar waited for the laughter to die down. "While their numbers are small, we must not underestimate any new species. The laws of the Confederation are clear. We must welcome them and assess their potential for membership." Back on Earth, final preparations were underway. In a secret underground facility, General William Hawke paced back and forth. His weathered face was set in a grim expression as he addressed the room full of world leaders and top scientists. "Ladies and gentlemen," he began, his voice gruff. "In a few hours, our ships will make their first jump into Confederation space. We'll be revealing ourselves to the galaxy at large." He paused, his eyes sweeping across the room. "Make no mistake, we're stepping into a lion's den. The aliens out there have been spacefaring for millennia. They'll see us as primitive, weak." A murmur of concern rippled through the audience. Hawke raised his hand. "But they don't know humans. They don't know our history, our determination. They haven't seen what we can do when our backs are against the wall." He clicked a button, and a hologram of Earth's 5 ships appeared. These ships represent the pinnacle of human ingenuity, centuries of scientific advancement compressed into floating fortresses. They may look small and unimpressive, but appearances can be deceiving. In orbit above Earth, the 5 ships of humanity's first interstellar fleet hung silently in space. To an outside observer, they might have looked fragile, even quaint. Their sleek hulls gleamed in the sunlight, hiding the incredible technology within. Captain Chen's voice crackled over the comms. "All ships, report in." One by one, the other captains confirmed their readiness. Sarah took a deep breath, her hand hovering over the command console. "Well, boys and girls," she said, a hint of excitement in her voice. "Let's go introduce ourselves to the galaxy." With a flash of light, the 5 ships vanished from Earth orbit. Humanity had taken its first step into a larger universe. The aliens might laugh now, but soon they would learn an important lesson. Never underestimate humans. As the Earth fleet hurtled through hyperspace towards their destiny, none of them could have imagined the impact their arrival would have. The galaxy was about to learn that size isn't everything, and that sometimes The smallest fleets packed the biggest surprises. The stage was set. Humanity was ready to make its grand entrance. The human fleet burst into normal space with a flash of blue light. Captain Sarah Chen blinked, her eyes adjusting to the view on the main screen. Before them loomed a massive space station, its multiple arms stretching out like a metal octopus. "Welcome to Starbase Zeta," Lieutenant Rodriguez announced, his voice filled with awe. Sarah nodded, trying to hide her own amazement. "All right, people. This is it. First contact. Let's make a good impression." As the 5 human ships approached the starbase, they looked tiny compared to the massive alien vessels docked there. Some were so large they could have swallowed Earth's entire fleet without noticing. On the starbase, news of the humans' arrival spread quickly. Aliens of all shapes and sizes rushed to viewing ports, eager to catch a glimpse of the newcomers. "Those can't be warships," a tall, tentacled being chuckled. "They look like escape pods." His companion, a short, furry creature, joined in the laughter. "Maybe they're toys for their young." The mocking comments spread through the station like wildfire. Back on the human flagship, Sarah received a transmission. A hologram flickered to life, showing a stern-looking alien with 4 eyes and blue skin. "Greetings, humans," the alien said, its voice translated by the ship's computer. "I am Commander Zixtal of Starbase Zeta. You may dock in Bay 47. Sarah nodded respectfully. "Thank you, Commander. We appreciate your hospitality." As the transmission ended, Sarah couldn't help but notice the hint of amusement in the alien's eyes. She pushed down her irritation. They had a job to do. The docking process was smooth, but as soon as the airlock opened, the humans were hit by a wave of noise. A crowd had gathered to watch their arrival, and the air was filled with whispers, chuckles, and outright laughter. Lieutenant Emily Wong, the team's xenolinguist, frowned as she translated some of the comments. "Captain, they're making fun of us," she said quietly. Sarah straightened her uniform. "Keep your heads high," she ordered her crew. "We're representing Earth." As they walked through the station, the mocking only intensified. Aliens pointed and laughed openly. Some even took pictures, as if the humans were some sort of amusing zoo exhibit. "Look at how small they are. Their technology must be so primitive. I bet their ships don't even have proper shields." Each comment stung, but the human crew maintained their composure. They had trained for this, prepared for the possibility that they might not be taken seriously at first. In a large meeting hall, representatives from various alien races had gathered. The humans stood at the center, feeling very much like specimens under a microscope. A tall, elegantly dressed alien stepped forward. "Welcome, humans," he said, his voice dripping with condescension. "I am High Counselor Vexcor. We are amused by your presence here." Sarah stepped forward, her chin held high. "Thank you for your welcome, High Counselor. We come in peace and friendship, hoping to join the galactic community." Vexcor's lips curled in what might have been a smile. "Join? My dear, do you really think you're ready for that? Your ships are tiny, your technology primitive. What could you possibly offer the Confederation?" The room erupted in laughter. Sarah felt her cheeks burn, but she held her ground. "We may surprise you, High Counselor." "Oh, you've already surprised us," Vexcor chuckled. "We never expected such a small, weak species to make it this far." As the laughter continued, Sarah exchanged glances with her crew. They had expected some resistance, but this level of mockery was beyond what they had prepared for. Suddenly, alarms blared throughout the station. The laughter died instantly, replaced by confused murmurs. Commander Zixtal burst into the room, his 4 eyes wide with panic. "High Counselor, we're under attack. A massive enemy fleet has just dropped out of hyperspace." The room erupted into chaos. Vexcor turned to Sarah, his earlier amusement replaced by fear. "I don't suppose your tiny fleet could help us?" he asked, his voice dripping with sarcasm, even in the face of danger. Sarah straightened, a determined glint in her eye. Actually, High Counselor, we'd be happy to assist. You might find that size isn't everything. As she led her crew back to their ships, Sarah allowed herself a small smile. The aliens had mocked them, underestimated them. Now they would show the galaxy what humans were truly capable of. The stage was set for humanity to prove its worth. The real test was about to begin. Alarms blared throughout Starbase Zeta as Captain Sarah Chen and her crew raced back to their ships. The earlier mockery was forgotten in the face of the new threat. Status report. Sarah barked as she entered the bridge of the human flagship, Defiant. Lieutenant Rodriguez's fingers flew over his console. Massive enemy fleet just dropped out of hyperspace, Captain. They're not responding to hails. Sarah's eyes narrowed as she studied the tactical display. The enemy ships were unlike anything she had seen before. Dark, angular vessels that seemed to absorb light rather than reflect it. Any intel on who they are? She asked. Emily Wong, the xenolinguist, shook her head. Negative, Captain. They don't match any known species in the Confederation database. Outside, chaos reigned. The massive alien ships that had dwarfed the human fleet now seemed small compared to the new threat. Panic spread through the station as civilians rushed to escape pods. High Counselor Vexcor's voice crackled over the comms. Attention all ships. This is not a drill. We are under attack by an unknown force. All capable vessels, engage the enemy. Sarah watched as the Confederation ships moved to engage. Despite their size, they seemed slow and clumsy compared to the agile enemy vessels. They're in trouble, Lieutenant Wong observed. Sarah nodded grimly. And they're too proud to ask for our help. As if on cue, a massive explosion rocked the station. One of the Confederation's largest ships had been destroyed with seemingly little effort. Captain, Rodriguez called out, his voice tense. The enemy fleet is splitting up. A group of them is heading straight for us. Sarah's mind raced. This was their chance to prove themselves, but also a massive risk. All hands, battle stations, she ordered. Prep for engagement. The bridge crew looked at her in shock. But Captain, Wong protested, our ships are tiny compared to theirs. We don't stand a chance. Sarah allowed herself a small smile. Size isn't everything, Lieutenant. It's time to show them what humans can do. As the enemy ships approached, Sarah opened a channel to the other human vessels. All ships, this is Captain Chen. Form up on me. We're going to show these aliens what Earth's tiny fleet can do. The 5 human ships moved in perfect formation, looking almost comically small against the backdrop of the massive battle. The enemy ships bore down on them, weapons charging. Evasive maneuvers. Sarah ordered. Execute pattern Alpha 3. What happened next stunned everyone watching. The human ships moved with incredible speed and precision, darting between the enemy vessels. Their movements were so quick and unpredictable that the larger ships couldn't land a hit. Now, Sarah shouted, deploy countermeasures. Small devices shot out from the human ships, attaching themselves to the hulls of the enemy vessels. Suddenly, the massive ships began to drift, their systems shutting down. On the Confederation command ship, Vexcor watched in disbelief. What are they doing? He stammered. Commander Zixtel shook his head in amazement. They're winning, he said, his voice filled with awe. Back on the Defiant, Sarah allowed herself a moment of satisfaction. All ships, focus fire on the lead vessel. Let's show them what our primitive weapons can do. The human ships unleashed a barrage of energy weapons. The beams looked almost pitiful compared to the massive cannons of the Confederation ships. But when they hit, the results were devastating. The enemy ship's hull buckled and then exploded in a brilliant flash. A cheer went up from the human crews. They had drawn first blood. But the battle was far from over. The main enemy fleet, seeing the fate of their advance force, changed course. Now all of their ships were heading straight for the human fleet. Sarah's expression turned grim. Looks like we got their attention, she muttered. Rodriguez looked up from his console, his face pale. "Captain, we're outnumbered at least 20 to 1. Even with our tech, those aren't good odds." Sarah nodded, her mind racing. They had proven their worth, but now they faced annihilation. Unless... She opened a channel to Starbase Zeta. "High Counselor Vexcor, this is Captain Chen. We've bought you some time, but we can't hold them off alone. We need to work together." There was a long pause. Sarah held her breath. Finally, Vexcor's voice came through, all traces of mockery gone. "Understood, Captain Chen. What do you need us to do?" As the massive enemy fleet approached, humans and aliens prepared to fight side by side. The true test was about to begin. The vast expanse of space around Starbase Zeta was alive with explosions and weapons fire. The human fleet, once mocked for its size, now stood as the last line of defense against the overwhelming enemy force. Captain Sarah Chen's voice crackled over the comms, addressing both her fellow humans and the Confederation ships. "Listen up, everyone. We're outnumbered, but not outgunned. It's time to show these invaders what we can do when we work together." On the bridge of the Defiant, Sarah turned to her crew. "Rodriguez, link our targeting systems with the Confederation ships. Wong, coordinate our movements with their fleet." As the crew rushed to obey, Sarah opened a channel to High Counselor Vexcor. "Counselor, we need your biggest ships to act as shields. Our smaller vessels can maneuver between them and strike at the enemy's weak points." Vexcor, his earlier arrogance gone, nodded grimly. "Understood, Captain. We'll follow your lead." The battle that unfolded next was unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. Massive Confederation ships moved into formation, creating a wall of metal and energy shields. Between them, the agile human vessels darted back and forth, their advanced weapons striking with pinpoint accuracy. "Target their propulsion systems," Sarah ordered. "If we can't destroy them, we'll make sure they can't move." Human ships zipped between enemy vessels, firing concentrated bursts of energy that sliced through the invaders' engines. Crippled ships began to drift, easy targets for the Confederation's heavy weapons. On the starbase, aliens of all species watched in awe as the battle unfolded. "Look at how fast they move," one exclaimed. "And their weapons, they're cutting through the enemy ships like they're made of paper." Commander Zixtal, coordinating the station's defenses, shook his head in amazement. "We were fools to mock them," he muttered. "These humans, they're incredible." Back in the thick of the battle, the Defiant shuddered as an enemy blast grazed its hull. "Shields at 60%, Rodriguez reported, his voice tense. Sarah gritted her teeth. They were making progress, but the enemy's numbers were still overwhelming. They needed something more. Suddenly, Lieutenant Wong's eyes lit up. "Captain, I've been analyzing the enemy's communication patterns. I think I've found a weakness." Sarah turned to her, hope rising. "What is it, Lieutenant?" "Their ships are all linked to a central command vessel," Wong explained quickly. "If we can disrupt that link, we might be able to throw their entire fleet into chaos." A plan formed in Sarah's mind. It was risky, but it might be their only chance. She opened a channel to all ships. "This is Captain Chen. I need volunteers for a dangerous mission. We're going to strike at the heart of the enemy fleet." To her surprise, not only did all the human ships respond, but several Confederation vessels as well. Vexcor's voice came over the comms. "We're with you, Captain. Lead the way." What followed was a daring assault that would be remembered for generations. Human ships, protected by Confederation cruisers, punched through the enemy lines. They took heavy fire, but their superior speed and agility allowed them to dodge the worst of it. As they neared the massive enemy command ship, Sarah gave the order. "All ships, fire EM pulse generators. Aim for their communication arrays." A wave of electromagnetic energy burst forth from the Allied ships, enveloping the enemy command vessel. For a moment, nothing seemed to happen. Then, one by one, the invading ships began to drift aimlessly, their coordinated attacks falling apart. A cheer went up across the Allied fleet. "It's working," Rodriguez shouted. "Their fleet is in disarray." Sarah allowed herself a small smile. All ships pressed the advantage. Take them down. The tide of battle had turned. Without central coordination, the invading fleet was easy prey for the combined might of humanity and the Confederation. Ships that had seemed unstoppable mere minutes ago now fell one after another to the Allies' attacks. As the last enemy vessel exploded in a brilliant flash, a stunned silence fell over the battlefield. Then, slowly, cheers and shouts of victory filled the comms. On the bridge of the Defiant, Sarah let out a breath she hadn't realized she'd been holding. They had done it. Against all odds, their tiny fleet had saved the day. High Counselor Vexcor's face appeared on the main screen, his expression a mix of awe and gratitude. "Captain Chen," he said, his voice solemn, "on behalf of the entire Confederation, I thank you. We owe you a debt we can never repay." Sarah nodded, feeling the weight of the moment. "Thank you, Counselor. But this victory belongs to all of us, human and alien alike." As the adrenaline of battle faded, Sarah realized that everything had changed. Humanity had proven itself on the galactic stage. The mocking was over. A new era was beginning. The victory cheers had barely faded when alarms blared once again across the Allied fleet. Captain Sarah Chen's moment of relief vanished as she turned back to the main view screen. "Report," she barked, her eyes scanning the tactical display. Lieutenant Rodriguez's fingers flew over his console. "Captain, we've got more enemy ships incoming. A lot more." Sarah's heart sank as she saw the numbers. The enemy fleet they had just defeated was merely the vanguard. The main force was now bearing down on them, easily 10 times the size of the first wave. High Counselor Vexcor's face appeared on the screen, his earlier gratitude replaced by panic. "Captain Chen, what do we do? We barely survived the first attack." Sarah took a deep breath, forcing herself to remain calm. "We fight, Counselor. We've beaten them once, we can do it again." But even as she spoke, Sarah knew this battle would be different. Their earlier victory had relied on the element of surprise. Now, the enemy knew what they were capable of. As if to prove her point, the incoming fleet split into smaller, more agile groups. They had learned from the mistakes of their comrades. "All ships, defensive formation Delta," Sarah ordered. "Confederation cruisers, form a perimeter. Human ships, prepare for rapid response strikes." The space around Starbase Zeta became a chaotic dance of light and shadow. Enemy ships darted in, unleashing devastating barrages before retreating. The Allied fleet responded with coordinated counterattacks, but for every enemy ship they destroyed, 2 more seemed to take its place. On the bridge of the Defiant, warning lights flashed as another volley rocked the ship. "Shields at 30%, Captain," Rodriguez reported, his voice strained. "We can't take much more of this." Sarah gritted her teeth. They needed a new strategy, and fast. Her eyes darted across the tactical display, searching for any advantage. Suddenly, Lieutenant Wong spoke up. "Captain, I've been analyzing the enemy's attack patterns. There's something odd about their movements." Sarah turned to her xenolinguist, hope rising. "What is it, Lieutenant?" Wong's fingers danced across her console as she explained. "Their ships move in perfect synchronization, almost like they're being controlled remotely." Sarah finished, the realization dawning. "They're not individual ships, they're drones." This changed everything. Sarah's mind raced with new possibilities. If they're drones, there must be a control ship coordinating them. Find it, and we can shut down their entire fleet. The hunt was on. As the battle raged around them, the human ships used their superior sensors to scan for any anomalies. Minutes felt like hours as they searched, all while taking heavy fire. "Captain," Rodriguez suddenly shouted, "I've got something. There's a ship hanging back, just at the edge of our sensor range. It's not engaging in the battle." Sarah's eyes narrowed. "That's it. That's our target." She opened a channel to the Allied fleet. "All ships, this is Captain Chen. We've identified the enemy control vessel. We need to take it out, but we'll need a distraction." High Counselor Vexcor's voice came over the comms. "We'll give you that distraction, Captain. Just tell us what to do." What followed was the most daring maneuver of the entire battle. The Confederation ships launched an all-out assault on the enemy's front lines, drawing their attention. Meanwhile, the 5 human vessels slipped away, using the chaos as cover. As they approached the control ship, Sarah felt a mix of anticipation and dread. This was their one shot. If they failed, the entire Allied fleet would be overwhelmed. "Weapons hot," she ordered. "Wait for my mark." The enemy finally noticed them, but it was too late. "Fire everything," Sarah shouted. The space between the human ships and their target lit up with a dazzling display of advanced weaponry. The control ship shields buckled under the onslaught, then failed completely. For a moment, nothing happened. Then, across the battlefield, enemy ships began to drift aimlessly. Without central control, the deadly drone fleet was reduced to space debris. A stunned silence fell over the comms, quickly replaced by cheers of disbelief and joy. They had done it. Against impossible odds, humanity had saved the day once again. As the Defiant turned back towards Starbase Zeta, Sarah allowed herself a small smile. The battle was over, but she knew this was just the beginning. Humanity had proven itself not just as fighters, but as innovators and strategists. The galaxy would never underestimate them again. High Counselor Vexcor's face appeared on the screen, his expression a mix of awe and respect. "Captain Chen, we owe you more than we can ever repay. The Confederation stands ready to welcome humanity with open arms." Sarah nodded, feeling the weight of the moment. "Thank you, Counselor. We look forward to working together to build a safer galaxy for all." As the battered but victorious fleet made its way back to the starbase, Sarah knew that a new chapter in human history had begun. They had come seeking acceptance, and had found so much more. The future, it seemed, was limitless. The battle was over, but the real challenge was just beginning. As the human ships docked at Starbase Zeta, Captain Sarah Chen took a deep breath. They had won the fight, but now they had to win the peace. Crowds of aliens lined the docking bay, their earlier mockery replaced by awe and curiosity. Sarah led her crew down the ramp, her head held high. The same aliens who had laughed at their tiny fleet now cheered and applauded. High Counselor Vexcor waited at the bottom of the ramp, his posture humble. "Captain Chen," he said, his voice carrying across the suddenly silent crowd. "On behalf of the Confederation, I offer our deepest thanks and our sincerest apologies. We judged you unfairly, and you saved us all." Sarah nodded, accepting both the thanks and the apology. "High Counselor, we came here seeking friendship and cooperation. I hope recent events have shown that size isn't everything. It's innovation, adaptability, and courage that truly matter." As Sarah spoke, holographic displays around the docking bay flickered to life. They showed footage from the battle. Human ships dancing between much larger enemy vessels, their advanced weapons cutting through seemingly impenetrable shields. "Tell us, Captain," a voice called from the crowd. "How did your ships move so fast? How did your weapons pierce those shields?" Sarah smiled. It was time for the big reveal. "What you saw," she said, her voice carrying clearly, "was the result of centuries of human innovation compressed into a few short years." She gestured to her ship. "Our vessels may look small, but they house technology far beyond their size. We've mastered gravitational manipulation, allowing us to move in ways that defy conventional physics. Our weapons use focused quantum disruption fields, bypassing traditional shields." A murmur of amazement ran through the crowd. Vexcor's eyes widened. "But how? Your species is so young." "Necessity," Sarah replied simply. "For centuries, we fought among ourselves. It was destructive, but it drove innovation. When we finally united and looked to the stars, We poured all that knowledge into exploration and defense. She turned, addressing the entire crowd. We may be newcomers to the galactic stage, but we bring with us the lessons of our history. We've learned, often the hard way, about the dangers of underestimating others. We hoped you would not make the same mistake with us. The silence that followed was profound. Then, slowly, aliens began to step forward, reaching out to shake hands with the human crew. The atmosphere changed from one of awe to one of genuine respect and curiosity. As the impromptu meet and greet continued, Vexcor pulled Sarah aside. "Captain," he said quietly, "I believe this is the beginning of a new era for the Confederation. Your people have much to teach us." Sarah nodded. "And we have much to learn from you. This is why we came, not to prove our worth, but to be part of something greater than ourselves." Suddenly, alarms blared throughout the station. Sarah tensed, fearing another attack. But the sound was different, more urgent, but not hostile. Commander Zixtol rushed up, his 4 eyes wide with excitement. "High Counselor, Captain Chen, our long-range sensors have detected something incredible. The enemy fleet. It's not just defeated, it's retreating from the entire sector." The news spread quickly, and cheers erupted throughout the docking bay. Vexcor turned to Sarah, his expression a mix of joy and disbelief. "Do you understand what this means? Your victory hasn't just saved us, it's liberated an entire region of space that's been under siege for decades." Sarah felt the weight of the moment. What had started as a simple first contact mission had turned into something far more significant. Humanity hadn't just proven itself, it had changed the balance of power in the galaxy. As the celebration continued around her, Sarah's mind raced with the possibilities. New allies, new technologies to share, new worlds to explore, and new challenges to face together. She caught the eye of Lieutenant Wang, who was deep in conversation with a group of alien scientists. Wang grinned and gave her a thumbs up. Nearby, Rodriguez was excitedly comparing notes on ship maneuvers with some Confederation pilots. This, Sarah realized, was what they had really come for. Not just acceptance, but true partnership. The mockery of their tiny fleet was long forgotten, replaced by respect, curiosity, and the promise of a brighter future for all. As she looked out at the stars through a nearby viewport, Sarah smiled. The galaxy had just become a whole lot bigger, and humanity was ready to embrace it all. 3 months had passed since the historic battle at Starbase Zeta. The galaxy was buzzing with news of humanity's incredible debut on the galactic stage. Captain Sarah Chen stood at the observation deck of Earth's first interstellar embassy, watching ships of all shapes and sizes dock at the newly constructed space station orbiting Earth. "Quite a view, isn't it?" a familiar voice said behind her. Sarah turned to see High Counselor Vexcor, his blue skin shimmering in the starlight. Sarah smiled. "It certainly is. I never imagined we'd come this far so quickly." Vexcor nodded, his 4 eyes scanning the busy space lanes. "Your people have made quite an impression, Captain. The Confederation has never seen such rapid integration of a new species." Their conversation was interrupted by Lieutenant Wang, who approached with a datapad. "Captain, Counselor, the first joint human-alien research team is ready to begin their work on quantum shield technology." Sarah's eyes lit up. This was what she had hoped for. Not just acceptance, but true collaboration. "Excellent work, Emily. Please tell them they have my full support." As Wang left, Vexcor turned to Sarah. "You know, when your tiny fleet first arrived, I thought it was a joke. Now half the Confederation is scrambling to retrofit their ships with human technology." Sarah chuckled. "And half of Earth is eager to learn about alien cultures and sciences. It's a good exchange, I think." Their conversation was interrupted by a commotion near the main entrance. A group of young aliens, clearly students on a field trip, were excitedly pointing at a holographic display of the battle at Starbase Zeta. "Look," one of them exclaimed. "It's the human ships. They're so small, but so powerful." Sarah and Vexicor exchanged amused glances. The story of the tiny fleet had become something of a legend. As they watched, Lieutenant Rodriguez approached, looking slightly flustered. "Captain, the Galactic News Network is requesting another interview. They want to know more about Earth's history and how it led to our technological advancements." Sarah sighed. The media attention had been relentless. "Tell them I'll do it, but only if they also interview some of our alien partners. This isn't just about humanity anymore." Rodriguez nodded and hurried off. Vexcor looked at Sarah with newfound respect. "You continue to surprise me, Captain. Most species in your position would be basking in the glory." Sarah shook her head. "That's not why we came to the stars, Counselor. We came to be part of something bigger than ourselves." Just then, alarms began to sound. But these weren't the panic-inducing klaxons of battle. Instead, it was a ceremonial tone, signaling the arrival of an important guest. The main doors slid open, revealing a tall, regal alien flanked by an honor guard. The entire station seemed to hold its breath. "The Galactic President," Vexcor whispered, awe in his voice. The President approached Sarah and Vexcor, his movements graceful despite his large size. "Captain Chen," he said, his voice deep and resonant, "I've come to personally thank you and your people for your service to the galaxy." Sarah bowed slightly, honored but composed. "Thank you, Mr. President. We're just glad we could help." The President nodded. "Your modesty does you credit, Captain. But your actions have done more than just save lives. You've ushered in a new era of cooperation and innovation for the entire Confederation." He turned, addressing the growing crowd. "Today, I am here to formally invite Earth to take its place on the Galactic Council. Your wisdom, courage, and technology will be invaluable as we face the challenges ahead." The station erupted in cheers. Sarah felt a wave of emotion wash over her. This was beyond anything they had hoped for when they first set out into the stars. As the celebration continued around them, Vexcor leaned in close to Sarah. "You know, Captain, I owe you an apology. When I first saw your fleet, I thought the humans were foolish to send such tiny ships into the vastness of space." Sarah smiled. "And what do you think now, Counselor?" Vexcor looked out at the bustling space station, at the humans and aliens working side by side, at the mingling of cultures and technologies that promised a brighter future for all. "Now," he said softly, "I think the galaxy was foolish to have ever underestimated you." As Sarah looked out at the stars, she felt a sense of pride, not just in humanity's achievements, but in the new bonds they had forged. The tiny fleet had started as an object of mockery, but it had become a symbol of hope for the entire galaxy. A new era had begun, and humanity was ready to face it head-on, hand in hand with their new allies.